Rhizosorb is redefining what growers expect from phosphate fertilizer. Backed by data and built for performance, Rhizosorb helps reduce phosphorus losses, improve uptake, and boost ROI without increasing input costs. Join the next wave of growers switching to the next generation of phosphorus fertilizers by visiting phospholutions.com.
It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio. Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Shaun Haney, your host here on this Friday edition of the show. Thanks so much, everybody, for making RealAg Radio and Rural Radio 147 a big part of your workday. We got a lot to break down here today on the show, and because there is so much, we're going to have a bonus segment today where we're going to break down the things we don't necessarily get to on the show. So if you're listening to the RealAg Radio podcast, you will hear the extended version of today's program. We've got Ann Wasko, the Gateway Livestock Exchange, joining us. There's lots to talk about in the beef market update. We've got some update on some stats can numbers. Of course, she always has a pricing update. And what exactly is happening in, we've got the rancher, the feed yard, and the packer. Who's winning and who's losing when it comes to profitability? I will tell you the winner is easy to select. The rancher having a pretty good fall, which is great to see. We'll talk about that. We've also got a RealAg Issues panel here today. Meagan Murdoch from H&K Strategies will be with us out of Toronto. She's going to join Kelvin, Heppner, Lyndsey Smith, and myself from RealAgriculture. There's lots. We've got the Carney meeting at the White House. We've got some red tape reduction from the Canadian government. We've got Meagan's conversation with the Deputy Minister of Agriculture. We've also got President Trump canceling his meeting with President Xi. That news broke this morning. We'll talk about that and the impacts on the U.S. farmer, but also how that works its way back to Canada as well. So there is lots. I think there's also a jobs report today, surprising majorly to the upside. Okay, now, if you have any feedback on today's program, there's a number of ways to get a hold of us, okay? And before I go through those, I do want to mention that you got to make sure you're getting our Real Agriculture emails. You can do that by going to realagriculture.com/subscribe, keeping you up to date on all the things that are happening in the world of agriculture and how it impacts your farm business. So that, again, is realagriculture.com/subscribe. Now, for your feedback, all you got to do is send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also call the RealAg feedback line or text it, 855-776-6147. You can also find Real Agriculture across all of the different social media platforms, too many to name. Here's an example. Here is an example of a text message that I got. Shaun, hey, liked your episode today. So this is reference to, this is a farmer from Ontario. This is reference to Tuesday's episode where I just riffed. I was like a solo guitarist, like Slash, just going through some of the issues. And I had a lot of fun doing that. No guests, just me. And I got a chance to cover some of the big issues of the day and some thoughts and get your opinions. So, Shaun, liked your episode today. Just wondering, when you talk about the entrepreneurial spirit in Canada, do you also not think we should have better antitrust laws where small companies get swallowed up too easily by one that is bigger? We had a local telecom company that was sold by a bigger one, and you are going to want to sell to us, or we will put you in a position where you're choked out. Look at the tractor companies, not many options. That's very interesting. It's going to be really interesting. I appreciate that text. Thank you. 855-776-6147. I think it's very fascinating. We're in a period here where I think there's going to be a lot of talk about antitrust. There's also going to be a lot of talk and focus on, and think about the farm inputs, for example. Why are input prices so high? Is it the market, or is there too much consolidation? We're going to see that in machinery. We had the news from Corteva. They're breaking up. We know that BSF is looking at not doing it like a total spin out, but they're going to do this like IPO for their ag business. So a lot of this kind of stuff is happening, and people see the current Trump administration as being favorable to these kinds of business activity. So I appreciate the text, and I think we're going to see more discussion about this for sure. Hey, let's take a break. We got more coming up on RealAg Radio right after this. It's now time for a product spotlight. We're talking right now to Tim Dara, canola technical strategy lead for Bayer. As growers are thinking about hybrid selection for this upcoming year, what's compelling in the DeKalb portfolio?
I mentioned DK401TL. That's a special product, I'll be honest. It yields fantastic. It offers the dual trait in terms of TrueFlex and LibertyLink, so it gives a lot of flexibility for growers. It just has a lot of great fits across Western Canada. We're also offering a new hybrid this year on the TrueFlex side of things, DK904TF, which is the highest yielding glyphosate-resistant hybrid that we've ever tested. It has a great opportunity for guys in those areas that are looking for that fit. We're right now in the middle of that seed selling season, and we're in the middle of our DeKalb Harvest Rewards offer. In that offer, growers stand to save up to $75 a bag on canola when they book by October 31st. And that's for all DeKalb hybrids, so the entire lineup's available for that offer. And if growers are interested about that and want to learn more, they can talk to their rep or talk to their agronomist, or they can go to DeKalbRewards.ca and find out more about it.
If you're involved in the agriculture industry, it's important to stay informed on all the latest issues affecting your business. At RealAgriculture.com, we offer fast, reliable news, information, and insights to help you keep on top of all of the latest in Canadian agriculture. Visit RealAgriculture.com and sign up for our free daily newsletter covering everything from news, agronomy, animal agriculture, and much more. Visit RealAgriculture.com/subscribe today.
It's a great time to book next year's canola. While this year's results are fresh, especially when it saves you money. Save up to $75 per bag of canola with DeKalb Harvest Rewards, but only until October 31st, and Halloween is fast approaching, so you better act soon. Visit DeKalbRewards.ca for details. Let's get to the beef market update with Ann Wasko, the Gateway Livestock Exchange. Ann, how are we doing?
I am doing great, Shaun.
That's good. Well, it's we're very much into the mid part here of October, and I'm out of ways to describe the market action and direction that we have seen in the cattle markets. This is, you've been doing this for a while. This is unprecedented, unheard of. We've just never seen it before.
Yeah, no, definitely. And again, every time the market kind of does a fake like it did last week in terms of, markets, futures coming off pretty substantially. You flip the page to the next week and everything runs back up again. So at some point that will end. But every time we've kind of thought we were getting near to it, the market takes another run. So on the cash this week, though, Shaun, I think things were kind of steady and quiet in the U.S. in terms of pricing. The futures did make a big run back after the big drop last week. But nevertheless, it's still kind of quiet in that Texas, Kansas area. So there hasn't been anything trading there, but it looks to be steady based on what's going on in the north. Nebraska looks like 230 live, which will be steady, and 358 dress. So we're gonna expect south to be steady as well. The cattle, which had dropped a lot from peaking in the first part of September over the last month, it did kind of find a bottom, it looks like, this week. It clawed back a couple bucks. Last night, the choice cutout closed at $365.20, and the select's still sitting back about 21 bucks. So pretty normal on that front. So we'll be watching. I'll go on and finish Alberta markets in a second here, but we'll be watching really closely. Of course, here we are into pretty much close to the middle of October, or Canadian Thanksgiving at least. And from here forward, typically that cutout will see some improvement. We're going into what's historically a good demand time in the U.S., especially U.S. Thanksgiving, the Christmas holiday season, New Year's parties, those kinds of things. But after the kind of summer we've come through with amazing demand, does that happen again? Are we going to see the seasonal? So that's kind of the things we're watching for. It does look like, I say, the cutout did see a big drop over the last month. Looks like maybe found a bottom this week, so that's what we'll be watching now. The Alberta market, Canadian markets were off a little bit this week, Shaun, in terms of the cash for fat cattle, not feeder cattle. Fats were 507 to 508 delivered dressed. So that's kind of, we had a big range last week, and these prices are at the lower end of last week's range, so the Canfax average will come in lower. There was a little bit of live trade, 305 to 306 FOB. And again, that's at the end of bottom of last week's range. And it also looks like Ontario prices 520 to 523 delivered. So same thing, a little lower than last week. So that's kind of, and we've got a few more cattle kicking around in Canada at this point in time. So this isn't all that surprising. I think, to build on a couple of reports that I want to talk about that came from StatsCan this week, I think the storyline really all year, 10 months now, has been this tighter beef supply. We've seen it through smaller harvest levels that we've talked about, the smaller cattle on feed numbers that we've talked about. That means smaller beef exports. And year-to-date Canada, we're sitting down 4%. We've also got fewer live cattle going to the U.S. this year. We've got fed cattle exports in August were down 7%, and cows were down 11%. So everything's down. The one thing that's up, that's filling in that gap of shorter supply, is our beef imports. And we've talked about this before, but we did get the September beef import numbers from StatsCan. So I'll kind of just update you a wee bit on that. In September, we were up 14%. So year to date, we're still sitting up 18%. And it's not North American trade. From the U.S., we're down 5%. Less coming there. It's coming from Australia, New Zealand, and even Paraguay is getting into the market, which we haven't usually brought beef in from Paraguay. So that's kind of
more of a ground beef, or what is that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, lean trim, things to blend with our domestic trim to make those hamburgers, those patties, processed meats. Definitely, that's what's coming in. Definitely. And that's what we're the most short of. I know that sounds strange sometimes for producers to hear, but when our cow kill's down this much, we simply don't have enough, quote, hamburger beef for what consumers demand in Canada, which is a good thing.
Yeah, we don't want to be grinding up tenderloin to feed the ground beef market. We want that extra value on those cuts, and let's import the lower value stuff.
Yeah. Although on that point, Shaun, one of the things that's really provided some cutout support is that things like in the end meats, like a chuck and a round, those are now starting to get ground into lean trim because the price points, lean trim so high, and certainly we're starting to see more of those kinds of cuts. But anything and everything that can, again, it's the market that decides what goes where and what gets imported, and that's holding true again.
Yeah.
So I think, so that's kind of what's filling the gap, if you will.
How we've focused a lot about the rancher and the strong prices. What's life like right now for the feed yard trying to place these cattle, besides trying to find their best friend, the banker, to increase the operating line, because you just need a lot more money to fill that feed yard?
Yeah, no, these are difficult times and especially this one. I want to talk about cattle cycles and past cycles, but certainly this one, as you said off the top, is far from normal in terms of where we've seen cow-calf prices go in terms of calf and feeder cattle pricing. So that's going to be certainly the struggle. So on the other end of this of the coin, we're going to have to continue to see strong demand to keep prices strong until we get right through into 2026. We haven't seen the tightest supplies yet. That still lies ahead in 2026. Wow. And a lot depends on exactly, because we really haven't started to, increase any kind of numbers in the U.S. or Canada in terms of heifer retention. So a big question mark still lies around that Mexican border. That was the big surprise for 2025, removing about 1 million head from the U.S. system. So that's part of the reason why the bullish market got so much more bullish than we were expecting.
Okay, so that's the feed yard. I understand. What the packer caught between the feed yard and the grocer, and what's life like there?
Well, let's talk a little bit, because one of the other reports that came in, Shaun, was from StatsCan, was the August retail beef price.
Oh yeah.
So we've seen these prices keep marching higher all the way through the system, right from that beef level up that the consumer sees at retail, right on through the chain. So when they came out with their prices for August, we did see the beef market actually drop a wee bit from July. I know people are going to say, I didn't see that. But anyways, that's what StatsCan's saying, just a wee bit. Nevertheless, August prices are 10% higher than last August at the counter nationally in Canada. Pork prices In August, we're up 11% from July, so a big jump in pork prices. This is, again, retail prices. And now they're 17% higher than they were a year ago. So again, some big strength there. Chicken prices were flat here in Canada from August compared to July, but compared to a year ago, they're up 11%. And when you go through and look at the year-over-year price increases, it's across the board on everything. So far, this year, packers saw some times of some very good margins. When the cutout dropped off in the last month, margins dropped back off $100 to $100 in the red, roughly. So it's going to be an ebb and flow. But there's different times in the cattle cycle where different parts of the segment make money and lose money. And so that's what I expect. It isn't all going to be roses for sure.
I'm really, because of all my travels back and forth across Canada and the U.S., you eat out lots. And I like to go out for a steak. Got to remortgage my house to do so sometimes. But, one thing I notice is what cuts on a menu are really being featured. And, one cut that is often used for things like fajitas and carne asada is a skirt steak. And I have seen a skirt steak showing up a little bit more on the menu, which is a little bit of a mid-lower value cut. Still not cheap, but obviously trying to work in some more value-conscious menu items at a steakhouse.
And that's good to hear, Shaun, because from a cattle producer's perspective, that's what we need to see is more of the different value cuts. Give the consumer those choices, right? Some will still want to buy that high-end steak, but there's a big part of the population that's looking for some value. Yeah. We'd sure like them to stay in beef. And so that's great news, Shaun. I like that.
And thanks so much for joining us here this week for the beef market update. Happy grilling this weekend, and we'll talk to you again in a couple weeks.
Okay, thanks, Shaun. You too.
That is Ann Wasko of the Gateway Livestock Exchange, and we've got the rest of RealAg Radio coming up. And, of course, it's Friday, which means it's the RealAg Issues Panel. Right back right after this.
Important update from FMC. Precision Pack DB878 Pro herbicide is now registered for use in front of oats, along with spring wheat, durum, winter wheat, and barley. DB878 Pro herbicide delivers proven kochia control, including herbicide-resistant biotypes, plus extended control of cleavers, dandelion, narrow-leaved hawksbeard, and volunteer canola. And with Precision Pack herbicide customization, you get the acres you need. No leftovers, no wasted time. See your local participating retailer today.
RealAg Radio is Canada's only daily radio show focused on agriculture. Get expert advice on Agronomic Monday. Tuesdays and Wednesdays will cover a broad range of issues. Thursday we'll hear from farmers across the country on the Farmer Rapid Fire. And we'll wrap things up Fridays with the RealAg Issues Panel with Kelvin Heppner and Lyndsey Smith. Join us Monday through Friday at 4:30 Eastern. And don't forget about the replay at 7 in the morning on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM.
Ever hear that good things come to those who wait? Well, we think it's more like great rewards come to those who book their Invigor hybrid canola early. Through the Invigor Book and Buy Grower program, you could earn a $30 per bag rebate when you book all your Invigor needs by November 14th. Speak with your local retailer about eligible hybrids. Terms and conditions apply. Book early. Come out ahead.
Let's get going with the RealAg Issues Panel here on the RealAg Radio. But first, from nutrient management to the latest weather, market, and ag trends, the Dirt, an economics podcast, is your place for farm-smart topics to boost your profitability. Join host Mike Howell on Season 4 of the Dirt podcast, available now at nutrient-economics.com. Looking forward. I'm going to actually see Mike Howell next week. We're doing an event together in Raleigh, North Carolina. Looking forward to that at the BSF headquarters. It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, let's get to our panel. Up first, it is Lyndsey Smith out of Ottawa, Ontario. Lyndsey, how you doing?
So well. Yeah.
Is that honesty or sarcasm?
Yeah, no, it's good because guess what? It's the Thanksgiving weekend for us Canadians. And exactly. I absolutely love Thanksgiving. The leaves are beautiful. It's finally like cold at night. It is sweater weather, which is like Lyndsey weather. And I love turkey and stuffing, and it's amazing. Yep. So, yeah, no, I'm good.
And This morning I was on a radio program and I said that Thanksgiving is the best holiday, and I actually got texts from people that were listening. They're like, "What are you talking about?" I don't even make me go through that rant. I don't. We'll
but like clearly they're new to the Shaun Haney show, because like if ever there was a poster child for Thanksgiving is the best, it is you. It is. It's really. I'm not trying to
be a smartass around here. This is my favorite.
No need for gifts. There's just really good food.
Same meal as Christmas. Great. Sports are awesome. Great.
The weather's better. Yeah. Anyway, it's also shout out to my brother. It's also his birthday. So happy birthday, Josh.
Nice. Also is Kelvin Heppner coming out of Altona, Manitoba. Kelvin, how are you?
Doing well. I'm not sure Thanksgiving's at the top of the list, but it is a pretty good holiday, and I'll echo everything Lyndsey said about it being a good time of year.
He's a Christmas defender, Lyndsey.
I know. We know.
True.
It's fine.
A Christmas defender.
Christmas is still at the top, yeah.
I have a friend that favorite is Halloween.
No. That's like way at the bottom of the list. Yeah.
The bottom?
Pretty close, yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm. St. Patrick's Day, and I know this may surprise some of you, but St. Patty's Day and Halloween are probably my least favorite.
Whoa, St. Patty's Day.
I know. Although it's a great excuse.
What could you not like
good Irish stew? It's always like it's in the middle of the week, and there's like they put food coloring in beer. Like, why are you ruining beer anyway? Carrying on, we have another guest.
Yesterday in the Toronto airport, where our next guest resides, I had a pint of Guinness and a shepherd's pie at Finn McCool's. So it was very St. Patty's of me. Also joining us here today is Meagan Murdoch with H&K Strategies. How are we doing today, Meagan?
Oh, I'm good. Though I'm very sad to hear that you were in my city yesterday and didn't call me for a pint.
Well, let's be fair. I landed, raced to Fergus, Ontario, tried to get a few hours of sleep, gave a speech at the CAFA meeting, raced back to the airport, had enough time for a Guinness, and got back on a plane back to Calgary.
I don't know about this, but I think you need to plan better next time. At least, plan so you can come see a Jays game.
That was poor planning.
Yeah. Those tickets are expensive.
Yeah, but worth every penny these days, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, they are.
Imagine seeing 11 strikeouts by Yasavage. Imagine being at that game.
Were you at that game?
No, I wish I would. I wish I had been.
Yeah.
Kicking myself.
People have been texting me about like hockey has started, and I know we got the RealAg Hockey Pool brought to you by Cantera Seeds and Alliance Seed, and where the hockey pool's ripping and the standings are up, and hey, today's the last day to enter, realagriculture.com/hockey, but it's baseball season.
Yeah.
I'm not moving on to hockey yet. And by the way, the Flames beat the Oilers this week as well, in case anybody was paying attention to that. Okay, let's get to the biggest issues of the week. I guess, Meg, let's start with you. We had a big meeting in the Oval Office at the White House. Prime Minister Carney made his second appearance there. And the reaction from Canadians has been interesting. It hasn't been all positive. What's your thoughts on what you saw this week in D.C.?
Yeah, I lean positive on it. We know that it is difficult to have meetings in Washington and have them be productive. Sometimes they can end very, very, very badly. And this one, looked very amicable. The president said, very nice things about our prime minister. There was no deal. There was lots of talk of a deal and how Canada would be very happy with a deal. But we haven't seen that materialize. But, the prime minister did well in a very strange environment, as the Oval Office is these days, and escaped unscathed. And, that's kind of the long play that we need to, be taking right now.
Yeah, long play. I think that sort of describes what is in front of us. One of the, for people that were disappointed, there seemed to be this like expectation that a bunch of stuff was going to happen, mainly steel and aluminum and the lumber industry, I think would be the best candidates for that. But Lyndsey, I think one of the issues here is the prime minister, he continues to kind of set these expectations. This is going to be a fast process, I think, or lead people to believe that. And I just don't see that being the case.
So I watched a lot of the commentary coming out of this because it is, I think overall, a decent outcome so much as nothing got necessarily worse, but pretty low bar, right? I mean, nothing really also was announced or got done or at least publicly moved forward. But it does come to sort of the crux of the issue here is messaging and setting up these meetings or setting up a path forward, timelines, etc. I mean, realistically, it's well within the government's purview to essentially choose what they want to say or what expectations they want to set. And you're right. They sort of are, it seems like they are sort of overestimating what they may do. And I sort of feel like, shouldn't we be a little more low key and like over deliver than potentially really oversell and under deliver? Because, realistically, we all have to remember, this is a really big deal, right? Our Canada-US relation, huge deal. And then the B part is we're not a majority territory here, Carney. I don't know if he forgets that sometimes, that like, this is not, he has to take care of a government at home, not just do what he wants as far as meeting with people and what he wants to do. So I think you still have to be setting expectations in I don't want to say conservative, but like in a more realistic tone.
Yeah. Kelvin, you joined me on Wednesday on the show and we were chatting about this for the reaction. He seems much more comfortable with the international file than the domestic file. And I kind of have this developing theory in my head that he is really trying, because the Trump factor is what got him elected. Although, according to Abacus data, it is not the number one concern of Canadians right now. That's the rising cost of living. Trump is actually, I think, number 5 on the list. But he's trying to close this issue so that maybe that's when they call their snap election. Hey, your biggest concern, I got rid of it. But I don't know about that. I think that if he's banking on that, he may be waiting for a while.
I actually have kind of a contrary take on it, I think, Shaun, where the fact that Carney was so friendly and sat there so quietly and didn't pipe up when Trump said some ridiculous things this week in the Oval Office, and to Meagan's perspective, he showed he's doing the long play here. I think if he cared about domestic politics right now above the U.S.-Canada relationship, he would have gone in elbows up, and that would have been politically popular if he's planning to call a snap election this fall or this winter or anytime soon. I think the fact that he was friendly with Trump has drawn criticism from the people that voted for elbows up Carney back in spring, and I think that Carney showed he is prioritizing the Canada-U.S. relationship above domestic politics in the meeting in the Oval Office this week.
So
yeah. I mean,
sorry, go ahead, Meagan.
When I said long play, there is no other play in my view. There really is only one way to approach Trump, and doing anything other than what he did in the Oval would not help Canada in one bit. And, and I am...
Might have helped Carney's election chances.
And
yeah,
exactly.
Tanking the economy at the same time, though. Good for Carney.
Oh, yeah. Oh, exactly. But politicians do that all the time. They make short-term politically motivated decisions that aren't in the best interests of their electorate.
Yeah. I spoke to 2 different audiences this week, about politics and issues and all this kind of stuff. And I found everybody's just disappointed in general. Like the crowd that I feel like I'm in, as far as like, I think he did pretty good. Like there wasn't carnage from it. He had, they're clearly comfortable with each other. They get along, at least on the surface. But if you are a senior that was worried about the American factor, that was a big voting piece of Carney's support, you're very disappointed, because it hasn't exactly been elbows up, Macho Man Randy Savage off the top rope, dropping elbows. And if you're on the conservative side of the aisle, I've heard a lot this week from conservative people that, he looked like he was schooled. He was the lesser of the 2 leaders, and there's all that narrative. And so everybody just sort of feels kind of, I'm not sure what people's expectations were, because what's happening is sort of what I think we're on the right path here. But Lyndsey, go ahead before we take a break.
Well, I just wanted to point out, I think, one really key thing, and I feel like the curtain got pulled back a little bit on this. And so think about this if we view it through the whole, reality TV show star, etc. Trump went on all sorts of rants, had, monopolized the conversation, sure, great, said all sorts of things, and Carney just sat there, smiled, because what was to be gained by calling him out? Nothing. But what was interesting, there's a one key point. I recommend everyone go back. He almost said you could be the 51st state, but he stopped himself. Trump stopped himself before he did. He alluded to it, but he didn't actually say it. And I think that actually, right? Like it actually does tell you, I think, a lot that realistically, this is going to be a hard fought battle, but realistically, I think they have a good relationship. And honestly, that's more than what we can say for a lot of other countries. So I'm still hopeful that we're going to do okay. I'm not in any way thinking we're going to do well.
Well, and here's the other thing. Agriculture has more patience here than softwood lumber, steel and aluminum, and some in the auto industry. The
auto industry is panicking.
For sure. Hey, let's take a break. We've got more coming up here on the RealAg Issues Panel. Meagan Murdoch, Kelvin Heppner, Lyndsey Smith, back right after this.
Soil health is under pressure, but real solutions start below the surface. Black Earth offers a full suite of humic solutions, from high-purity granules to powder, liquid, and soluble formulations, all powered by pure Humulite. Formulated for performance, backed by consistency, trusted by growers worldwide from one of the world's rarest reserves. Grow stronger with the power of Black Earth Humulite. Learn more from Mine to Market at blackearth.com.
Peter Johnson at WheatPete, RealAgriculture.com. I'm the host of The Word, and I love doing The Word. I love the questions. I love the challenges. I love having to apply agronomics to all over the globe and areas outside of my normal jurisdiction. Also, I love the feedback the most, where growers challenge me, tell me about their plot results, help me to learn. The Word, absolutely the best part of my day.
The future of Canadian food is strong, and FCC is ready to help the next generation of innovators like you. The financing tailored to your needs and resources to help you keep growing. To get started, visit fcc.ca/youngfarmer. That is fcc.ca/youngfarmer. We got the RealAg Issues Panel here today on RealAg Radio. Lyndsey Smith, Kelvin Heppner of RealAgriculture, as well as Meagan Murdoch of H&K Strategies, based out of the Big Smoke in Toronto. Hey, Meagan, last week you were at the same event that Lyndsey was, right? The CAPI event. And you did a panel with the Deputy Minister of Agriculture, Lawrence Hanson. What was your takeaways from that?
Yeah, it was awesome. We were part of CAPI's annual exchange conference, talking about agriculture in a risky world. And I had the pleasure of doing a fireside chat to kick off the conference with the Deputy Minister, as well as amazing partnership with Ardar, who is also part of the conference. And that was great. We had Mark Redmond, who was able to offer a lot of insights as well. We talked a lot about risk, but really, I don't tend to listen to Tyler all the time when he tells me what to do, and I didn't on the fireside chat either. So I actually wanted to talk more about opportunity, and that's not too hard when you're talking about agriculture. There's just so much opportunity, really, but really trying to think about how do we change our mindset, both as government and industry, from trying to mitigate risk, but actually just look at that as opportunity and try to maximize it. So it was a really interesting conversation. We covered a ton, actually. I think the biggest thing that came out from me was, if we are going to look at BRM programs and really do something fundamentally different, the Deputy Minister said what he needs most from industry is for industry to come forward with ideas, with solutions, even with the actual wording of what they would rather it be. He said that is most helpful when industry really comes to the table with the ideas and the solutions.
Yeah, see, here's the problem right there is we have not shown in many cases our ability to do that, Lyndsey, because we want the industry wants the attention. We want to be heard. And if actually rubber hit the road and somebody sat you down and said, okay, industry, what do you want? Mm-hmm. Can I get back to you on that?
Yeah, right. But you know what? It is okay to say, I'll get back to you on that. But then you have to do it.
No, you should be ready for that conversation.
If
if the really good-looking guy or good-looking girl across the room walks across and say, hey, you want to dance? You don't say, hey, can I get back to you on that?
Well, you got to learn the choreography.
You say yes.
So, yeah. Okay.
You have to go away and learn how to dance first.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't do that.
Yeah. So to that point, though, let this be the what do you want call then. Like, let this be like let's put a line in the sand somewhere. And exactly that, we are hearing from, and I had the pleasure of going on stage after Meagan.
Thank God. I didn't have to follow you.
Stop. Anyway, we had a lot of fun. But realistically, that was one of the things that got talked about a lot with this group and with outwardly, and we've got a new podcast that talks about it as well. We are good at identifying the problem. Yes. Okay, cool. But we do have ideas for solutions, but you're right. We're not prepared with our bullet points, with our ask, right? Like, we don't have it laid out. Now, I'm not in that room, obviously, on, the producer groups going and having these consultations on BRM, et cetera. So, maybe it is communicated more than we think, but it was pointed out that, whether it's a nation building strategy, whether it's business risk management, whether it's whatever, let's talk about our ideas. Let's write them down. Let's decide what we want, whether it's by sector or overall or whatever, and then communicate it, for crying out loud. Like, let's actually talk about it. And maybe we do need to be a little more, inventive with what we're asking for, or, be willing to listen to each other and build on this and maybe actually have conversations outside of our little silos. But this is a really key part, is that bring the solutions, not just the problems, or bring the problem with the solution together at the same time. So when you do get a chance to stand in front of, whether it's your MP or the minister or whatever, you've identified the challenges, but don't worry, you've got a solution, and hand them over. Talk about them. So let this be that moment then, Shaun, that everybody within your organizations, within your groups, spark that conversation at your board tables with your leadership, and let's get our ask nailed down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the deputy and I spoke a little bit about red tape, and I know we'll probably talk a little bit more about red tape later in the show too. But, and he and I disagreed on whether regulators get up in the morning and want to make people's lives worse. He didn't seem to think that was the case, but I'm not so sure. But he did say that, regulation over regulation over regulation does have unintended consequences over time. And it is really hard to get through that. But if the industry was to observe where something is not working and actually came with the case study to say this is the financial impact that it's having on our firm, and actually just come with a bit of evidence, not I don't want this regulation, that's just not going to fly, but come to the table with the solution. And I can tell you that when we were in government, that made our lives as staff members for the minister so much easier, when the industry actually helped us as staff members who, are generally 20s, early 30s. They would come and say this is actually what we need, and here's how it works, and step through the staff members so that they can then brief up to the minister correctly as well.
Well, but you worked for a minister in particular that wanted, in cutting red tape and getting rid of regulations was important to
that's true
too, right? So yeah. Kelvin, I guess when you see that list of red tape reductions the government put out this week, do you see it as a flop of a list or fruitful?
Fruitful, and no pun intended, because the fruit is one of the things that is part of is going to benefit or see some more flexibility here in terms of these 7 measures that were introduced. It's not a flop. It's just a tiny drop in the bucket. That's the issue, Shaun. This is part of the government's overall move to cut red tape. There is more focus on cutting red tape than there probably has been since Meagan was working for Minister Ritz, and Minister Ritz was focused on it as well. I think we are back, maybe not at the same level, but as high as it's been since then in terms of focusing on cutting regulation. We have the House of Commons Ag Committee right now doing a study on it. They've been hearing from witnesses the last couple of weeks and are going to continue for the next couple of weeks. That maybe was part of the reason the Canadian Food Inspection Agency announced those regulatory changes this week. There's a focus on this, and so I think they needed to show some progress. Sure, it's low-hanging fruit, just a drop in the bucket, but these changes for fruit and vegetables, potatoes, veal calves, hatching eggs coming into the country, very specific, only affect stakeholders in those sectors who work in either imports or buying and selling these commodities. But I think it could make a difference and loosen things up a little bit there in terms of making the regulatory burden easier on those specific commodities.
Lyndsey, I have a bit of a theory here that we are hesitant to rip off the Band-Aid when it comes to some of the regulations because the government knows that Canadians are comfortable with regulations. They think the regulations protect them from something. I think that holds the government back from making real regulatory reform on some of these files. What are your thoughts?
So again, it's actually kind of complicated, but again, communication really matters here, right? In that I think for most people, they just want to know exactly that our food is safe, that our food system is safe, that there are checks and balances in place so that the food that they buy, is safe and it's healthy and all those things all those ducks are in a row, right? So I think on most people, they just want to know that, and they're not really going to dig into, how important it might be to get rid of some of these regulations, et cetera. Or they hear that as a negative, right? Of like, oh, that's opening us up to risk, et cetera. But as Kelvin pointed out, like some of these, and it's working around the margins of some of the bigger things but some of them are, they're just to add a little flexibility or make sure something has a bit more time to get done or, those sorts of things, which does help, at least at the very basic level, to sort of get things moving. So I'm hopeful that it is the start of some momentum. But you're right. And culture, we talk about that a lot on this show, the culture of Canadians, et cetera. We tend to be a little more low key, a little more afraid of big change. Yep. A little more cautious
and
on
risk
these
averse.
Things. And risk averse.
Especially government.
Yes, exactly. So risk averse, right? So I think again, and I wrote a column this week, and the title may be somewhat alarming.
I don't know why you had to apologize for that. I was going to call you out on that. Why are you had a snappy title, and I see you're like a poet. You're being very Canadian. Apologize for the title.
Exactly. Thank you for noticing. But it's communication, stupid, right? Like it all comes down to how this is communicated. And realistically, as an industry, again, it comes back to us saying we like honestly, and this I'll pick on us, myself as an industry. We love to say get rid of red tape. Okay, point to the regulation that is getting in your way and tell me why it's getting in the way, and then tell me what would you do differently. And it can't just be get rid of it. No, because a regulation was probably put in place for a reason. So
no, it wasn't. Yeah, to give, I don't know if it's that simple. Anyway, continue.
No, well, but let's start there, because if you go to a regulator and you say, here's the regulation that is stopping me from being productive, why is it there? They need to be able to answer. And if they can't, then you can say, look, I understand it's there. How do we change it? Because it's getting in the way of me moving my business forward, or me being able to deliver this product, or me being able to grow this, or whatever the case may be. So we need to get more specific than just get rid of red tape. Yeah. What red tape? Like, yes, it's everywhere. But when you come across these dumb rules, and let's be honest, some of them you're like, what the heck? Some of them, Shaun, you're right. Some of them exist for a very specific reason, and maybe we need to address that specific reason. But that's what we have to drill down. We can't just generalize. We need to be specific. We need to have an action, and we need to communicate.
It's amazing to me that other jurisdictions have less regulations and people survive and live. And we seem to think that in many cases that we're being protected from something. Kelvin, wrap up here before we go to the break.
Cam Dahl of the Manitoba Pork Council spoke at the University of Manitoba's Field on Wheels conference this week, and he brought up the point that there are over 400 different farm organizations in Canada. And so a lot of these regulations, sure, one group asks for it to be cut, but somebody else has a reason for it being there and benefits from it being there. And so that's part of this communication and leadership that needs to come from industry, explaining to people why these need to be changed and making that case, making that justification to especially to bureaucrats working in the agriculture department, in CFIA, in the federal government.
You can tell who the Albertan here on the panel is. Get rid of, before you add one, you got to get rid of 5, something like that, like those kind of rules. Okay, we're going to take a break. We got more coming up here on RealAg Radio right after. Built on over 100 years of seed innovation and unwavering commitment to farmers, Pioneer 100 Series canola hybrids deliver a step change in yield performance and agronomic traits. This isn't just better canola, it's different canola. Pioneer 100 Series. Contact your local Pioneer sales representative or visit pioneer.com/100 Series to learn more today.
Whether you're running a farm operation, in a career within an organization, starting your own business, looking for your dream job, operating a company in agri-food, or want to hone your overall life skills, this conference is for you. Celebrating over 10 years of bringing women in ag and food together, join the Advancing Women Conference in Niagara Falls on November 23rd, 24th, and 25th. Visit advancingwomenconference.ca for more information and to register.
Well, it's a busy weekend as we head into Canadian Thanksgiving. We're going to get to what everyone is thankful for in a second, but I do want to give a shout out to the Canadian Association of Farm Advisors for having me speak yesterday at their meeting out in Elora, Ontario. Beautiful. Lyndsey, I'll tell you what, the drive from Elora to Pearson Airport was in, the Wellington County. That in the fall is some of the most gorgeous Canadian landscape you can ever imagine.
It is. So I will tell you, like late September, early October in Ontario is a stunner. And I know there's other areas as well, like Quebec, etc. But like this part of Canada at this time of year is it just makes my heart happy.
And some of the houses, those
it's beautiful.
Those are like estates.
Oh, I know. It's beautiful.
You know what? Like Meagan lives in a very nice area of Ontario.
Yes. Well, not directly because she's in a filing cabinet for people.
That wasn't her 12,000 square foot house outside of Guelph?
I can see the Jays Stadium, so that's nice. Yeah, but you're right. I drove out to Collingwood area a couple weekends ago, and it's beautiful. I don't think people appreciate like our maple trees either.
Yeah. Oh.
I lived in a different country. Like I didn't realize like it doesn't get like that in everyone's autumn.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, like Kelvin can't really weigh in here because autumn is exactly 3.5 hours in Manitoba most years. It goes from like green to like fall colors and then boom, trees are bare and it's snowing.
No.
The landscape is dead.
Yeah. So now I will say though, on balance, everybody, just so you don't think it's like all sunshine and roses, November can be awful and February sucks. But November is like wet and gray and muddy and gross.
Yeah, the shoulder season is not really
it's
ideal.
Bad. I prefer the Manitoba like, hey, now we're in winter, because at least you miss the really gross part. So.
Yeah, hello, winter, you old man.
Here you are.
Okay, Kelvin, Canadian jobs numbers. Boom to the upside. Wow.
Yeah, the opposite of a winter jobs report from StatsCan today. Up 60,000 jobs in September, led by none other than the manufacturing sector, which this kind of throws the whole narrative of tariffs really hitting manufacturing. Well, it throws at least a hiccup in it. So maybe this is a bit of a correction report in September. I'm not sure, but the unemployment rate held steady at 7.1%. Economists had been expecting a gain of just 5,000 jobs in September, and here they came in at 60,000. So much better than expected, and this will also probably, the bar is now higher for that inflation number from September to come in below expectations if the Bank of Canada is going to be making another cut later this month.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, Meagan, what's your response to that? What do you think?
Well, it's interesting just to see the swing because there were some really big declines in the prior 2 months. Economists seem to be saying this morning that we're just hanging on. It's not exactly a glowing endorsement. Nice to see the job numbers. Of course, we have to think about like seasonal changes and whatnot. But I think there's still a lot of uncertainty out there as to what awaits us in terms of a trade agreement and what impact that might have.
Okay, before we wrap up, it is Canadian Thanksgiving this weekend. So not to confuse everybody, all of our listeners south of the border.
They lose a month.
Yeah. Whoa, it's November already? Holy crap, I better get going. No, it is Canadian Thanksgiving. And so I guess we will hit on Lyndsey. What are you thankful for? Is that what you want to talk about for Thanksgiving? Is that your Thanksgiving question?
Sure.
Or do you have another one?
Yeah, no, it is now. It is a great holiday for a lot of reasons. as mentioned before. But I really do love gratitude. Like, I really do love, and I hope that everyone actually does take a moment to reflect and think about what they're thankful for. I think it's a wonderful exercise that you probably should do daily, but I love that we have a time of year to celebrate the harvest, to celebrate food, but also, of course, what we're thankful for. And so I want to put out exciting news for our house this weekend. My daughter is doing an exchange to France, and our French student arrives tomorrow. She'll be with us for 5 weeks, and then my oldest will be going to France in March for 5 weeks as well. And I will say I am really grateful that we have this opportunity to do this, that we get to welcome a student into our house and get to know her and her family. And it's, when I was in high school, a very small school, the whole school sort of adopted the exchange student that was the year ahead of me. She was from Germany. I should look her up. Anyway, it's an experience that was a cool part of me growing up that I didn't get to do, that I'm really thankful that my daughter does. And I'm really proud of us as a blended family that we're embracing this and doing something really cool for our oldest. So it's a really cool time. We're really excited. And maybe it means going forward, I will always have a place in France to stay for free if things work out well.
Yeah,
and that's important.
Beautiful country to visit. It's beautiful. Yeah, exactly. Kelvin, what are you thankful for?
Well, I'll say thanks for the reminder, Lyndsey. It's certainly that attitude of thankfulness, something my grandma has always emphasized when we get together and when we see her, and something we try to teach our kids as well. And certainly, I think we need more of that thankful perspective. And every time you do take stock of what you have, whether it's whether it's weather conditions, whether it's the yields in the field this year, there's lots to be thankful for. But I'm going shallow with my pick here and saying October baseball, that the Blue Jays are still in the playoffs and on to the ALCS.
Feels good. Doesn't it feel good? It feels good.
Yeah.
And for a dugout.
And further to Vladdy's comments on Fox with David Ortiz, when the Yankees lose, it adds to it as well.
Oh, how about Pedro? Who's your daddy, Yankees? Vladdy Jr. I love it's funny. Meagan.
Oh, gosh. How do you follow that? I think what's top of mind, I have to say, is just thankful for health. It's been a tricky year in my family for health, and the Canadian medical system came through. And very, very thankful that I'm able to spend Thanksgiving with my family, whether it's this weekend proper or in a couple of weekends from now, and everyone's healthy and happy. So, shout out to them. They don't get a ton of kudos, our health system, but they're certainly top of my thankful list this year.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay. Well, for all those of you listening to the podcast, we'll get the quick bonus segment here on today's program. If you have any feedback, Lyndsey, we dropped this earlier this week. Mm-hmm. The feedback line is now the text line as well. And I've got a couple texts this week. 855-776-6147. You can text it or call it. It's 855-776-6147. Do not forget. Time is of the essence now. If you have not registered for the RealAg hockey pool that is brought to you by Cantera Seeds and Alliance Seed, you need to do it. RealAgriculture.com/hockey. It's going to be a fun time. It is a fun pool. Great prize. Listen, first round of the NHL playoffs, grand prize. It is going to be fantastic. It's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to get to see the Calgary Flames. You'll have so much fun. Because the Senators and Leafs will probably, they're suspect if they're going to make the playoffs or not. So we know the Flames are pretty much a shoo-in. Thanks, everybody, for getting real and getting connected. No, they're not. Thanks, everybody, for getting real and getting connected with RealAg Radio, although they did beat the Oilers. See everybody next week. Cheers, everybody. And we are in the bonus, which is definitely a basketball term. That Brian Voth from IntelliFarm, who's on the show earlier this week, would be very, very proud of us for talking, at least referencing basketball. Mm-hmm. And now I know he's listening because he listens every day. Phil Shaw out of Dresden, Ontario. He gave a big shout out and props to Brian Voth for his analysis of the canola market when Brian was on the show on Wednesday. And I think it was very accurate. It's great to have Brian Voth on. Guys, so he's does the interview from his truck. And he's like, well, I'm just on a drive. Like, where'd you going? Oh, we decided to take a little holiday. They drove all the way down to from Manitoba, like all the way down to Idaho and back up. He was in Lethbridge this week and in Calgary. Like that's a prairie kid right there.
Yeah. Westerners are not afraid of road trips.
We are not. We're at deep down, we're all just a bunch of truck drivers.
That's right. Long distance truck driver, which is Shaun's dream job, by the way, everybody.
It is.
If he wasn't doing this, that's what he'd be doing.
I would love to drive truck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anyway, the difference though, since moving to Ontario, anything more than 20 or 30 minutes apparently needs, like, you have to pack a lunch.
But I get it. I was on the 401 yesterday, driving like on my drive back to the airport. Oh my Lord.
We call it a parking lot, Shaun, not a highway.
It's not a highway.
It was a parking lot.
Yeah.
But it was Thursday night of a long weekend.
Yeah, but it's also it's not just like traffic. So on Sunday, our local, Kinburn had a farmer's market, trying to get as many local vendors as possible. So we were there with our lamb, whatever. And everyone was like super local and super excited, and talking to some of the other vendors, because we don't really do farmers markets anymore. They do other ones that are like only 20, 30 minutes away. And they say, oh, we're from Kinburn. And they're like, where's that? Like, it's only 20 minutes away, you guys. Anyway, people in Ontario don't go anywhere. So yeah, a full-on road trip is not a thing.
Toronto, like that traffic, it's so bad. It's not like, it's like getting to be like Los Angeles type. Like, I've driven a lot of major cities across the U.S. and that is bad.
There's a reason the 407 is what most, if you have to go across the city.
It's worth the money.
Oh, it totally is.
It's worth the money. Okay, Kelvin, what did we not talk about today? What did we not hit on? What do you think?
Wow, I didn't have I should have been ready for this. I was going to say, you didn't give your thing that you're thankful for.
We were running out of time, and no one's
okay.
Now you have time.
Well, now you have time.
I was actually similar to you. Lyndsey was very heavy and a lot of feelings, thoughtful. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. I was going to go with Blue Jays being in the playoffs in October. This is one of the best sports weekends.
It is a really good sports weekend. I'll give you that.
The college football slate is amazing. We have hockey on. We've got baseball playoffs. And Kelvin will probably say there's a CFL game. He'll make that note because he always does that. So we're getting to the end of the season, aren't we?
A month.
Oh yeah. Well, Grey Cup is November 16th. Somewhere there.
Yes. Guys, we should all know that.
It's also the deadline. It's the deadline for the next round of nation building projects.
That's right.
So that was hilarious. So I was watching the National this weekend. Like that is so like referencing the Grey Cup is like a line. You know, we know the Prime Minister said he'd be ready for this by the Grey Cup. That's our deadline.
And everyone's like, when is that? Is it in Winnipeg, Kelvin? It's in Winnipeg.
Yeah, it's in Winnipeg.
Yeah.
And keep in mind, we have to stand up for the Grey Cup. It's the oldest professional sporting trophy in North America, Shaun. So
the new rules.
NFL is just this young up and coming upstart league.
It might stick around though, Kelvin. I think it has a bit of staying power.
Yeah, how are the new rules playing into it though? Is it making it better?
I'm mixed on it. There's a lot of people very upset about it.
Because I like the new rules of the baseball, that came in 2 years ago. I like those.
Those have worked out well.
Yeah, those have worked out well. Yeah,
they worked out well.
I don't think the rule changes aren't as substantial as they could have been. They didn't go all it's just a few steps.
Red tape reduction, just not fun.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sort of. We're playing around the edges. My daughter's going to be. She is home because she's in her PS3, and of course, teachers on strike in Alberta.
That's right.
So she's home this week, and so it's great she brought her new puppy dog, Benny. So I'm pretty thankful to be able to hang out with her all weekend, and her and I are hanging out all day Saturday. And I promised her we'd go on a big walk with the dogs, and she promised me she would sit down and we'd watch football all day. So it's me good.
Good trade.
I think it's a pretty good trade. I can go for a 45-minute walk to watch 9 hours of football.
9 hours.
Who do you want the Jays to play in the next round, Shaun?
That's a great
Detroit
trade.
or Seattle?
I think the Tigers.
Yeah.
I think I say that quite quickly thinking, but less travel back and forth. I don't know.
Both have large Canadian contingents that could show up on the American side in the stadium there too.
Yeah, but that's becoming harder and harder though, because if you look at the Yankees, I know a few people that tried to buy tickets to go to the Yankees and they couldn't because of their address on their credit card. They actually couldn't buy the tickets.
Ooh, they do that at the Leafs as well. I think they let
fans will find a way.
Well, fans do.
Ottawa does it to Toronto. Toronto doesn't do it to Ottawa.
Well, those Senator fans, they're shady.
Oh, stop.
They're shady.
A few of them that there are.
Yeah, a few of them. Yeah, the few of them. Kelvin, you shut your mouth when you're talking.
Okay, so Kelvin, what did we not get to? Because we got about 10 minutes left here.
One would be Prime Minister's headed to Mexico. Or sorry, not the Prime Minister. He was there last month. The
Prime Minister of Agriculture.
The Prime Minister of Agriculture.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Just making up titles.
Keith McDonald's headed to Mexico here to meet with his counterpart and some other key officials. Looks like the Mexican Ag Secretary is lined up for meetings with him, so we'll see what comes out of that. Of course, setting the stage for the CUSMA USMCA review next summer.
Wouldn't you say though that the review is kind of already in motion? Like we've like that's the official date, but we're kind of going here, aren't we?
Well,
yeah, that is the official date, and to me. This going back full circle to the start of the show, another positive sign so far for Canada and Mexico is that we haven't heard President Trump talk about withdrawing from the deal. The thing about CUSMA and USMCA is that even if this review isn't settled and there isn't real resolution here in the next year, it's still in effect till 2036. It just goes into a series of reviews and renegotiation efforts, but the actual text of the deal remains in effect for another 10 years after this review date. So it's the 6-month withdrawal notice from the White House that is, I think, the major concerning event if we get to that point, and we haven't heard President Trump talk about that. And in fact, he talked about the prospects of reaching new deals a lot more than that.
The phrase we're going to hear a lot is review, don't renegotiate. In the first round of the NAFTA renegotiation was do no harm. We're going to hear a lot of review, don't renegotiate.
Yeah, but I again, until President Trump pulls the trigger on it, I think it's just going to continue to kick down the road, and it's going to be difficult to come to a deal. But when that happens, that's when things will really hit the fan.
Yeah, this morning President Trump canceled his meeting with President Xi, which China, Jim Wiesmeyer from Wiesmeyer Perspectives was telling me Xi never actually confirmed the meeting. But President Trump says he's walking away from that meeting that was going to be held in November. So that probably increases the chance that once the government shutdown ends, that we do see an aid package of somewhere for sure north of $13 billion, or at least that much. And that soybean, the more this gets pushed back on some sort of soybean agreement, however much that would be, that probably take the under on that at this point because the window's closing, which creates a lot of hardship in farm country. Now, what I wonder if Canada shouldn't be, it was canceled because China making some announcements regarding rare earth minerals. Canada has rare earth minerals, and I wonder if Canada shouldn't be using that a little bit more as leverage in these talks. The Globe and Mail has a story here, just came out here about an hour ago. Canada-U.S. trade negotiations at a critical stage, according to Carney. And remember how we talked earlier about how other industries maybe are a little bit less patient, right? It says here, members of Mr. Carney's government have held talks with possible proponents of the Keystone, but he did not get into full details of which companies have been approached. The PM said the government has also not ruled out lifting a tanker ban on the Pacific coast if the conditions such as reduction of greenhouse gas emissions through carbon capture and storage can be achieved. And finally, he also did not rule out a second oil pipeline from Alberta to the West Coast. Woo, did we catch the drama this week between Premier Smith and Premier David Eby of British Columbia, Meagan? That was heated.
Yeah, it's interesting times when you have a Liberal Prime Minister who's musing about all of these things at once. I'm curious to see how long he can keep his caucus kind of in the tent. I think there's a little bit of musing that he is not quite the liberal climate supporting brand that maybe they had hoped he might be. He is taking some big swings and might even take some more for the sake of the economy. So yeah, I see what's happening provincially, but I'm actually curious what will happen inside the Liberal tent over the next 12 months.
Yeah, like this is the guy that was leading a global push for like sustainable banking.
Yeah.
Which is now defunct, right?
It is.
Right. But yes, he did. I think like further to that though too. And I mean, Meagan, you said the next 12 months, it might be less than that, right? Like, I mean, we've got, potentially some people moving out of cabinet sooner than later. We've got a lot of moving parts, right? But it's true. We've got a prime minister that is being pushed to sort of make a call on some of these things as well. Like that's the other part of this. The friction between Eby and Smith is really, fascinating, but also could be very explosive. So I guess every prime minister gets their own issues with premiers. I don't know, but that might be this one. What I did want to mention on the China, U.S., Canada part, or the China, U.S. discussion, and then where Canada fits in this, like you mentioned the rare earth minerals, it still puts us in just such a weird spot though, right? Like if the more China and the U.S. don't get along, there are opportunities potentially for Canada with both countries, but both of those opportunities end up being way more complicated because those two don't get along. It really puts us in such a hard position to actually capitalize on what we maybe want to do because we risk ticking off the other one. It's really tough.
And if I've got this wrong, I apologize, but I'm pretty sure it was Jacob Shapiro from the Bespoke Group that said to me quite some time ago, the best thing that could happen to Canada is U.S. and China don't get a deal because it pushes the U.S. back to the North American focus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if I have that, if I'm attributing that to him and I have it wrong, I apologize. But
text him, Jacob, and tell him. Okay, but
I just got to make sure I text the right Jacob because I've done
that. Yeah,
that
that's right. We've done text the wrong Jacob before. So I get that, but it'll be really interesting to see what would that look like, right? Because does that, I don't know. Anyway, I think that's a really cool thought process to see where that all goes because that is, yeah.
Isn't that the inevitable outcome here?
More and more, I believe so.
Nothing is inevitable at this point.
I think that's the long-term trajectory though that we're on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it means, again, contrary to the elbows up crowd, what they want, it means Canada and the U.S. will be even more integrated than what we have been in the past. Anyways.
Well, our leaders are buddies.
But we've been talking about this. At the end of the day, there is a scenario
where we're actually
that Canada could be more trade reliant with the U.S. than they were previous to all of this, all of this drama that is transpiring.
But that doesn't have to be a bad thing if it's a trade agreement that is respected and that has some sort of finality to it that people can actually build businesses on. That's the key part, right? I don't think that I shouldn't say that. I'm sure there are people out there who have the U.S. is dead to them and whatever, sure. But realistically, that doesn't mean that's a negative outcome for Canada at all. But it does depend what it looks like because the uncertainty part, the volatility part, the tariffs on, all of that uncertainty part is any getting closer to the U.S. has to have some certainty that we can actually move forward and build business on it. That's for sure. Yeah,
Carney had some post meeting with Trump this week. I wish I had the quote, but it was kind of acknowledging that, it was a reference to the WTO and there was a follow-up report or a follow-up question where they asked, do you think the U.S. respects the WTO? And Carney kind of acknowledged that this is a different world. Mm-hmm. And that blanket I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it kind of, when I read it, I was like, oh, he's kind of acknowledging there's going to be some sort of blanket tariff in place. And he what's interesting about Carney compared to Trudeau is he's actually a little bit more transparent in the language about what's actually being discussed.
Yeah, he's not political.
Right.
He says what's actually in his head.
Yeah, and so it's very fascinating because in some ways that's kind of what Trump does too. And so you've got two people that's they're both different styles, don't get me wrong, but they are both kind of here's what's happening. It's talking as a CEO talking to an investor call a little bit kind of thing.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if you've caught him on QP yet in Parliament, but he's not terribly effective quite yet at QP, given it's such a timed answer. Yes. He can't quite figure that out yet. It'll take
not super concise.
A little longer to figure out a talking point.
Yeah.
Ability.
Which unfortunately doesn't play well on social media, but in terms of skills that we want out of our federal politicians, might be.
I'll take it.
500 on the list. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's at this time. Yeah.
But on your point of WTO, sorry.
Go ahead, Meagan.
The point on WTO though, Shaun, it didn't have any teeth before Trump what makes us think it might have teeth with Trump? Like,
yeah, we have this romantic. That's a very good point. We kind of have this romantic notion about what was, and some people would say that Canada hasn't exactly been very WTO compliant in how they handle the EV tariffs on China. I don't know.
Nor did we really ever get cool sorted. Like, that never really happened.
And in some ways, though, Canada's going to have to choose. Do we continue to play the role of following the rules of the WTO, even if the WTO is ineffective? So do we criticize the Canadian government for what it did on EVs, even if it is contrary to the WTO? Like, if everybody else isn't following the rules of the sandbox, should Canada be following the rules of the sandbox? We saw the UK trade deal that's been held up as the best deal that any country's signed with the US so far. Trump's put new tariffs on the UK now. So that's another thing in all of this negotiation. It's all fluid. None of this is final. There's no period at the end of the sentence in terms of these negotiations. Lyndsey talking about needing that stability to drive investment and certainty for business. And unfortunately, whether we're talking WTO or whether we're talking specifically the White House, it's real hard to find that certainty to make those decisions. And it's something that I think as Canadians and Canadian agriculture that relies on exports and rules-based trade, we're going to have to adapt to a new reality here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I know Megan's going to run. That's all the time that we...
Whoa. Hang on.
What?
You didn't ask me where I'm at in the hockey standings. And I would like to point out that I am well ahead of Shaun Haney. At this juncture on the first
season, you're
that is correct. I am.
What I would expect this out of a Leafs fan or an Oilers fan.
No, that's fine.
The fact that you're front running like this, you're getting way ahead of yourself.
Shaun, it's very early in the season. Can we just let her have it? Like,
yeah,
it's not going to last long.
Thank you. Yeah,
it's not going to.
We can close now. I'm done.
I am notoriously horrible. Hockey pools, fantasy football, rotisserie baseball. Just not good.
And yet it doesn't stop you from talking sports on this podcast.
All the time. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sports podcast.
Hey, go Jays, go. Okay. That's what I've got.
Go games on Sunday, game 1. So when we come back next week, we are going to have a show on Monday. Mm-hmm. So it'd be a great way to celebrate Canadian Thanksgiving by listening to RealAg Radio. And the rest of the week, we are still trying to sort out what exactly it's going to look like, who's hosting and who's here.
I think I host Tuesday. Let's just take it one day at a time, Shaun. We can figure this out.
We'll figure it out. We will. Okay. I am really on the road next week. I am looking forward to. I'm going to be going to a very large feed yard in Nebraska on Tuesday. Amber and I are going to be down there. We're going to have a video feature. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm available. You let me know if you need to call me out of the dugout. Let me know.
Megan's hosting Wednesday.
Yeah, Megan's hosting Wednesday. Kelvin's hosting Thursday. We'll get it done. It's fine.
Nice. Okay. Good stuff.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yes. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there in the Real Agriculture audience. And again, email address is shaney@realagriculture.com. Enjoy family, friends, whoever you're hanging out with us on this Thanksgiving. And thanks for hanging out with us on this Friday. Have a great weekend, everybody.